Good Monday morning, everyone. I hope you had a good weekend, and the weekend is, for many of us, at least in the United States, that weekend is continuing. This is the Monday of a 3-day weekend in observance. I can't really say celebration, but maybe you can. Of observance of President's Day. Now, February used to have, or it still does, has the birthday of both Washington and Lincoln. And for some reason, when sometime in my childhood, they said, that's too many holidays. Let's just wrap it all together into one 3-day weekend so we can have car and mattress sales. Celebrate mattress sales. So let's have a President's Day weekend so we can honor Rutherford B. Hayes and Andrew Jackson and Grover Cleveland. And other great forgettable President Harrison. Let's bring in our President Harrison tree and decorate it. So anyway, am I making fun of President's Day? You damn right I'm making fun of President's Day. But Constance pointed out it's always good for us to look at the calendar and try to do something that is relevant to the cosmic flow of consciousness of the calendar. And I wanted to talk today about gurus and in particular thelemic leadership. Now, leadership is sort of a oxymoron when it comes to thelema, it being such a militantly individual thing. But anyways, and I know I've done this before in the last year or so, but I'm going to revisit it today. Somebody asked me about the leadership, in particular, of the AA, and that is a minefield of issues, and in that discussion, I am pretty much considered by all points of view as being somewhat heretical. Not really, not severely heretical, but Lon has his own very strange and odd opinions about leadership. I sort of feel that someone governs best by not assuming to govern at all. And don't quote me out of context on that to label me anything. But anyway, here's my answer to a letter of that specific direction. I'm a bit heretical, at least in the eyes of a few lineage-focused individuals. We're talking about AA lineages. When it comes to the subject of AA, actually, I'm more the anarchist. I'm pretty comfortable with the initiatory worldview that uses the Tree of Life to identify major landmarks of human consciousness. The Golden Dawn presented us with the roadmap. Crowley's AA obliges us to actually take the trip. I believe, at least theoretically, a place can be found on this map for every unit of evolving consciousness. And so, at least from one perspective, I consider every human being a charter member of the big, generic AA. After all, Crowley considered Blavatsky an 8=3 master of the temple, and I'm almost certain she didn't have any AA paperwork from Crowley. I'm also not uncomfortable with the AA program of yoga, meditation, magic, and mysticism that Crowley lays out for the student in order for him or her to sequentially master and attain the levels of consciousness associated with the climb up the tree of life. Of course, I don't think the AA program is perfect, nor do I believe it is the only path upward. In fact, it's very clear to me that relatively few spiritual seekers are suited by inclination and temperament, for the subtleties and disciplines of AA work. Those who are, however, are most often sublimely suited. You might be asking, if DuQuette is so comfortable with the AA in theory and practice, what makes him so heretical? The answer is simple. I'm not completely on board when it comes to the AA student-teacher program, at least how I've been able to observe it in action. I said, completely on board, okay? Didn't say I wasn't on board. I'm saying completely on board. But I digress. As you know, in the East, there is a venerable tradition of guru, master, and chila, student. This simple system has served to transmit sacred knowledge and disciplines from generation to generation for thousands of years. It works. And it works well. But in order for it to work, the chila must be driven by something more than zeal to learn, and the guru must be possessed of something more than mastery of the subject. The chila must be able to accept the guru as God. God made visible. The chila must be able to project upon the master all the qualities of infinite wisdom, omnipotence, and omniscience that one would associate with God. The guru must be loved as God, believed as God, trusted as God, obeyed as God, served as God. You might think this is stupid, naive, and even dangerous of an attitude to take towards another human being. But consider for a moment the potential for learning when you believe with all your heart the teacher knows absolutely everything. There is literally nothing you cannot learn at the feet of such a master. Of course, the guru is only human and has limits to what he or she can consciously teach. But if the chila is unaware of those limits, his or her capacity for learning more than the guru is actually teaching is boundless. And what does the guru need to possess to make this arrangement work? The guru must possess almost superhuman restraint. Restraint not to believe his or her own press. Restraint not to abuse the chila's unbounded love and devotion. Restraint to reflect the purity of the student's love back upon the chila. Restraint to keep his or her goddamn hands off the attractive chilas. Restraint to keep his or her school, ashram, or movement from turning into a cult. Such restraint is yogic discipline of the highest order, to be worshipped as a living God and not blowing it. For many reasons that should be obvious, this system does not work particularly well in the West. Not that it couldn't work, it just doesn't, especially when dealing with the spiritual art of magic. Magicians have teachers, yes, but the magician's God is not one that is easily projected upon another person, especially another magician. The magician's career is a bit lonelier. Aleister Crowley and his friend George Cecil Jones set up a system of magical study and instruction which on the surface appears to be a guru-chila arrangement. Ideally, it's set up so that each student has a superior who is one step more advanced, a superior who in turn has a superior who is one step ahead of him or her, etc. Early in my magical career, I was eager to join this chain and felt privileged to become a student of Phyllis McMurtry, Phyllis Seckler later, before and later, Phyllis Seckler McMurtry, whose AA superior had been Jane Wolfe, whose superior had been Aleister Crowley. Now, as much as I love and respected Phyllis, it never crossed either of our minds that I should be devoted to her as if she was an omniscient goddess. Nor was it part of the program that I revere the memory of Jane Wolfe or even Crowley to that degree. Obviously, the AA was meant to be something other than the classic Eastern guru-chila AA system. At least in my case, I discovered it to be so. Several years ago, I received a letter from a woman who had been teaching magic for many years and had reached a point where her students were now beginning to teach also. She asked my opinion as to the traits a person should look for in a magical teacher. Here's my reply. What should be the traits of a magical teacher? Where magical teachers are concerned, I guess I sort of sit with my pea shooter at the very back of the class and on the extreme left wing of the building. Of course, I've read about great gurus who can read your mind, materialize in your bedroom to correct your spelling, masters who can describe to you your previous incarnation and item every article in your karmic baggage. I've read about them, but I've never met one. Magic, in my opinion, is something that can't be taught. One must learn it. You often learn it from other people. However, the moment a person starts to identify him or herself as your teacher and you as the student, you both are setting yourselves up for disappointment. Oscar Eckenstein, the man Crowley considered to be one of his greatest magical teachers, thought magic was silly and occultists were a waste of time. Still, Crowley learned from Eckenstein how to master himself and develop his yogic skills and powers of concentration. Without those skills, magic is just theory. Regardie wasn't my magical teacher, but I learned a lot from his attitudes and simple example of his life. He answered specific questions when I had them, but 9 times out of 10 I disagreed with him and ignored his advice. And 9 times out of 10 I was right. I also learned a lot from my formal AA superior. But I must tell you, I learned those lessons in spite of her efforts to educate me rather than because of them. And I certainly learned what a horse's ass someone can be when they presume to guide another's magical progress. Of course, I'm referring to myself. But your question is fair, and I'm talking like an anarchist. Maybe I should try to actually make suggestions. The most fundamental advice I can give is to look for somebody, in a magical teacher, to look for somebody who actually has a life. Someone who can hold his or her own in a room full of people who neither know nor care about magical things. And most importantly, a person who can actually attract lovers from a pool of people who are not at all impressed with his or her mastery of occultism, magic, witchcraft, religion, or politics. Once you've found qualities like that, look for someone who seems to be able to put things into words. Things you already know but didn't know how to say. Look for someone who says, I don't know a lot. Look for someone with more questions than answers. Look for someone who is relatively happy with his or her life. Relatively happy. It's the best you can hope for. Look for someone who appears to be actually evolving before your eyes. Look for someone who seems to be Look for someone who seems to be telling the truth even when it reflects poorly upon them. Look for someone who would rather study with you than lecture to you. And finally, and most importantly, look for someone who will be genuinely happy when you have surpassed him or her intellectually and spiritually. In other words, look for other students who are studying the same things you are and who may have a bit more experience than you presently have. Don't kid yourself. You said it yourself. Just by remaining on the path, you wake up each morning to the inescapable fact that as little as you know, you already know more than most people about these things. Trust me, one of these mornings, you're going to wake up and realize that most, if not all, the people who know more than you are dead. And there you are, a venerable authority with lots of questions, looking for someone to teach you the answers. You may as well start looking in the mirror right now. Well, this probably didn't directly address your AA questions, so I'll give you some practical advice and opinions. Please remember my words do not represent the policy of any branch, version, or lineage of AA. In my opinion, if you are thinking about AA, you are, for all intent and purposes, already in the AA, and should feel free to take the oath of a probationer, sign it, then keep it, burn it, frame it, whatever. Start doing the work as outlined. In a year, do the same thing with your neophyte oath and paperwork. If it's important for you to have an objective, in the flesh, formal classic link, I have no doubt one will eventually appear to sign off your paperwork. Your work, your challenges, and your ordeals will be waiting for you. before your paperwork is signed and after. I hope this has been helpful. And there's my little contribution to President's Day for everybody. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.